Welcome to Introductory Logic. We are in lesson 17 and we're continuing our discussion on relationships between categorical statements on the square of opposition. So today we are on relationship number 4, which is subimplication. We have already covered contradiction, contrariety, subcontrariety, and now we are on subimplication. Now, if you need to go back and learn what these are, those are in previous lessons. And so if any of what I'm talking about does not make sense, there are previous lessons to this one that you can go look at. So today we're covering subimplication and just reviewing everything else. So subimplication is between the universal and the particular statements that are of the same quality. When we put this up on the square of opposition, it is the truth of the universal necessitates the truth of the particular. Now, when we get it all up here, we're going to see how this makes sense. So just like always, we are going to start by filling in the information we already know on our square of opposition up here. So we're going to start with A, E, I, O. Now, our standard categorical statements of each corner. All S, R, P, no S, R, P. Some S, R, P, some S, are not P. Now we're going to look at quality and quantity of our statements here. So the first thing we're going to look at quantity, how much of the subject is being talked about. Up here we have all of our subject and none of our subject. So the entire extension of the subject is either included or excluded. So the top is called the universal. Down at the bottom we're talking about some are and some are not. So some of the subject is talked about, but not all of it. So this is particular because part of the subject is talked about. Okay, now that's quantity. Now we're going to look at quality. What is being said of the subject? Is something being affirmed or denied about it? On the left side, we are affirming something of our subject. So this is the positive side. On the right side, we are denying something of our subject, so this will be our negative. All right, now we move into our relationships. We have covered some, but not all, so the only ones I'm going to put up here are the ones we have covered. So the first one is contradiction. Now contradiction, remember, is a big X through our square. A and O contradict one another both ways. And E and I contradict each other both ways. So I'm going to write contradiction here. And remember, it goes both ways. And what this means is one is true, one is false. Next, we looked at contrariety. Contrariety deals with our universals up here, and it goes both ways as well. Contrariety, and this one means both. I want to put it under here. Both can be false, but they cannot both be true. So both can be false, but they cannot both be true. Down here is our subcontrariety, which deals with our particulars. And remember, sub means under, so it's under the contrariety. Whoops. I meant to do this in black. Contrariety. Oh well. Okay, so this one is the exact opposite of contrariety. So down here, if this one both can be false and it's the opposite, this is both can be true. but cannot be false. And we looked at how that works yesterday. So if you need a recap on that, just go back and look there. Now we are in the new part, which is subimplication. Now remember, sub means under, so those are some clues there. So subimplication is actually dealing with our universal down to our particular. So my arrow is going to go like this, and it's only one way. If you notice in our contradiction, contrariety, and subcontrariety, the arrows go in both directions because both affect one another. However, it's important to remember that this one is not the case. So for subimplication, the truth of the universal necessitates the truth of the particular, but it is only dealing with the truth, not falsity, and it does not go from particular up to universal. It is only from the top down. So I'm going to write here subimplication, sideways here, subimplication. And this one is subimplication. Okay, so the truth of the universal equals truth of particular. For time's sake, I won't write that over here, but it's the same on both sides. Now, if you notice too, it is always on its own side of quality. So the positives have to stay together and the negatives have to stay together. So the truth of A implies the truth of I. The truth of E implies the truth of O. Okay, so let's look at how this is so. Let's look at an example here. Let me get my book. All right, so if we have all, I'm going to write, let me do it up here. All right, if we have all Christians are forgiven sinners. This is a very long one. So you see how sometimes these get really long? What we can do is just abbreviate. So down here, I'm going to abbreviate. I'm going to do Christians as C, some C R, and then I'm going to do forgiven sinners as F, some C R F. But still, we're talking about the same subject class and predicate class in both. So remember, that was one of the things with the square of opposition. All the statements have to have the same exact subject and the same exact predicate. So if this is true, that all Christians are forgiven sinners, it implies through subimplication that some Christians are forgiven sinners. Now, in previous lesson, I shared that when we talk about the word some, we think we're talking about this part and not this other part. So some is exclusive in how our common conversation discusses. But in logic, when we say some Christians are forgiven sinners, we are not saying some are not. It's not the same thing. So logic uses the word some differently. So just keep that in mind, because it can get very tricky. Because when we hear some are, our mind goes to, well, some are not, and that's not true. So how can this be true? But remember, some is used differently. Let me show you a picture of what this means here when we use the word some and all. Let me look where I can put this here. Can I go here? All right, let's say I have a picture of Christians. Here's my picture, and every Christian is in this circle. This represents all my Christians. Now I'm going to talk about some of them. So I'm just going to pull out the group here. This is my sum. Now, I just said about them that all of them are forgiven sinners. So my entire circle would be colored. Here's the whole group of them. Here's my sampling that I pulled out. And because the sampling is within all, when I pull that sample out, they're also going to be forgiven because they're inside that circle that all are forgiven. All right. So now let's look over here at no SRP and some SRP. So let me erase this and go with something different. All right, let's say I do, what was this one? Okay, this one is, we're talking about scientists here. No, let's say no doctors are mad scientists. No doctors are mad scientists. All right, so I would do the same thing down here. I'm going to abbreviate my subject and predicate down here. So I'm going to do D for doctors. Some doctors are not, I'm just going to do M for mad scientists. So we're still talking about the same subject and the same predicate. I have just abbreviated it for space and time's sake. All right, so let's test this one. Let's say that this one is true. No doctors are mad scientists. By the rule of sub-implication, this necessarily has to be true as well. Now, let's look at our picture over here again. Let's do a different one to show what this looks like, where we say no and some. Okay, so now remember, the universal is talking about the entire group of the subject. Now it's excluding them from something, but it's still collecting all the doctors and putting them together to say something about them. So here's all the doctors in the world, and we're going to say something about them. Now, we've got some. So out of all the doctors in the world, I'm going to pluck out this group here. Just whatever's in there, I'm going to pluck this one out to talk about it and look at it and figure something out about it. But it's still within the whole. Now this one is denying something, so because this is our negative. So I'm not going to color anything in because I'm saying that none of them are something. None of them are mad scientists. Now if I had said all of them are mad scientists, I would color in the whole thing. But because I'm denying, nothing gets colored in. So the whole doctor circle is uncolored. The whole thing is being denied. And this smaller group that I've plucked out randomly, I have decided to look at, is still within the larger group, and it still has nothing, it's being denied about something. So this is how we can kind of think of some when we're looking at some. We are looking at just a sampling. We are not saying anything about the group out here when we're looking at some and some are not. So like, obviously others would still be included in that, but we're only looking at here and nothing is being said about the rest of them when we look at some. So if you can kind of help with that picture, it kind of helps us get out of our common conversation way of looking at the word some and into the logic way of looking at it. So key takeaways from sub-implication is it is from the universal down to the particular on the quality side. It only deals with truth, and it only goes from the universal down to the particular. If the universal is true, the particular below it with the same quality necessarily has to be true as well. So that's it for today. Y'all have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you for super implication next.